Hello, everybody. I'm Dennis Spillman, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Oklahoma Venture Forum podcast. With me is Doug and Craig. Tell me about yourselves and what you do.
Well, thanks, Dennis. Yeah, I'm Doug Sorocco. I'm with Dunlap Codding. I'm a biochemist that decided I didn't like the laboratory. So I went to the dark side and became a lawyer, and I work with kind of innovators and entrepreneurs, technical folks, as well as artists to help them protect their creative and technological rights.
Hi, I'm Craig Shimasaki. I'm the CEO of Molecular Labs, but I've also co-founded 9 companies, and in that process, realizing that there's a process over which it's important to actually have mentors, which we'll discuss today at the OVF.
Yeah, so tell us what about your presentation, what you're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, so one of the things that are very important is an ecosystem in Oklahoma that provides the platform to be able to start and develop organically grown companies. And certainly in an oil and gas state, it's important that we diversify the economy. And one of the missing pieces is entrepreneurial mentors, because without that, it's very difficult to actually build successful companies. So part of that program is actually to help train through the life of the organization these entrepreneurs to be successful in their ventures.
And I'm a part of the Creative Oklahoma here in the state. And several years ago, we were approached by an entrepreneur here in Oklahoma City who mentioned to us that there was a mentoring program from MIT called the Venture Mentoring System, or Service, excuse me. And their, kind of approach really resonated with the Oklahoma way, which is a team approach, very collaborative to mentoring, surrounding an entrepreneur with 2 or 3 kind of seasoned mentors that do not have kind of skin in the game. It's an unconflicted kind of approach of unbiased advice, very pragmatic advice and kind of counsel that is actionable so the entrepreneur can kind of take and run with it. And so when we looked at that program, we thought, well, we need this here in Oklahoma City. So over the last about 18 months to 24 months, we've been prototyping and piloting the program here, and we've launched our first batch of entrepreneurs who are into mentoring right now. And what we're finding is it's succeeding wonderfully here. It really does embrace that collaborative spirit of Oklahoma.
So how can people get involved in this venture, either as wanting to be a mentor or someone who needs to be a mentor?
We desperately need mentors because the importance of having experienced people. And sometimes people think, well, I'm not necessarily a good mentor because I've not been an entrepreneur. Well, you don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur. We're looking for successful business people because, as Doug said, this is a team mentoring approach, meaning that often within that group and that team that's mentoring, the mentors will find and come up with interesting ideas that were a collective wisdom from all of them, rather than a single individual actually telling them what to do.
It's always good to have an outside voice, yeah. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs here in Oklahoma?
I'll turn to you as the actual entrepreneur.
Yeah,
Probably lots of advice.
There is a whole lot of advice, but I think we have elements of many of the other things, have space and money and personnel and ideas. But the key really is that we need to have a very strong ecosystem of mentors and seasoned entrepreneurs. Because if you think about many of the Fortune 500 companies like Google and HP and even Facebook and all of these others, they started with a single or 2 entrepreneurs who in many cases didn't even know what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And so our goal is to augment that here. And the critical piece is, which we'll talk today about that with Doug and myself, is how important good entrepreneurs need good mentors. And I think that's the key.
And I think with anything, what we're finding here in Oklahoma City and the state is funding. For the entrepreneurs, obviously for their ventures and, and the funding to be able to take a product to market or, enter into a product service type area. But for us also, it's finding funding from, the established business community to put on this program. And so that's another thing we're going to be talking today is really the return on investment for a very small investment to be able to help grow the vibrancy of the kind of the tech and creative community here in Oklahoma.
Thank you, too, for joining me today on the Oklahoma Venture Forum podcast.
Thanks, Dennis.